I was really looking forward to the show today for a number of reasons. Amberly Lago is a health and wellness coach, TEDx speaker, podcaster, and a leading expert in the field of resilience and transformation. That's an understatement. She is the best-selling author of the book, True Grit and Grace, and empowers people around the world by sharing her story of how she turned a tragedy into triumph. Through her book, coaching methods, and workshops, she has curated unique tools to teach others how to tap into their superpower of resilience and persevere through any of life's challenges. She offers hope and solutions for anyone like her living in chronic pain to live life to the fullest. Amberly has most recently been featured on NBC's The Today Show, The Doctors, Hallmark, Good Morning La La Land, and contributed to magazines such as Shape and Health, a busy influencer to say the least. Amberly, welcome to the Run GPG podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. I am just so honored to be here and get to connect with you and share with your community. Thank you for having me. I love your podcast. I could seriously just sit and binge your podcast. So thank you. I feel honored to be here.
I appreciate that. I am really glad that a mutual friend, Brad, connected us. I didn't really know your story until Brad introduced us and I started really preparing for this interview. I think your story is so inspiring and compelling, and there's so much your book and your experience can do to help others going through something similar to you or give people hope. Is that how you see it too?
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. People have called me the hope dealer. So they're like, okay, I like that. I'll deal some hope out and give people the inspiration. And I think really what empowers me, gives me strength is when I can help others turn can'ts into cans and overcome challenges, especially, when they're in a dark space or they're having a hard time like I was. So that hope is all we need to keep moving forward a lot of times, just a glimmer of it.
A hope dealer. I like that. So that's a great phrase. So let's tell your story then. Like if someone's tuning into the show and introduced to you for the first time, tell us who you are and what exactly happened 10 years ago that changed your life.
Well, I hear a bio when you read a bio and it's like TEDx speaker, author, and all these things. And really, I know about resilience only because I have fallen so much and failed and hit rock bottom and literally had to climb my way out of darkness. And so I share that because sometimes on social media or even, when you read somebody's bio, it looks like all glamorous and easy. And it's like, no, I've really actually been through hell and back. But, 10 years ago, I'm here in California, even though it doesn't sound like it. I'm originally from Texas. And 10 years ago, I felt like I'm living the California dream. Like things are finally good. I had built my business, I was in the fitness industry. So I've been a coach and a trainer for, oh my goodness, going on 25 years now. And I remarried after being divorced twice. We had a daughter together after we'd been told we wouldn't be able to have children. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh my goodness, life is good. And then everything changed in the blink of an eye. I was doing fitness videos sponsored by Nike. I was nationally recognized as a health coach, been in Shape magazine and Health magazine and contributed articles to them on, often. And I had run my best time, 11 miles. I was an avid runner. I used to teach people how to pace themselves for marathons. Oh. And I'm on my Harley coming down Ventura Boulevard and I see this guy and I thought he saw me, but apparently he didn't. He punched it out of a driveway and hit me. I didn't really have time to do anything but just try to let go of the clutch and jump off my motorcycle. And it was too late. I was thrown about 30 feet. And I just remember sliding across the asphalt. And as I'm sliding, I was trying to curl into the fetal position because I couldn't tell if I was I was like, I'm going to be hit by another car. I couldn't tell if I was sliding into oncoming traffic or what. And so I finally stopped and I looked down at my leg and I only looked at it once because it's crazy when you look down and you see something that looks like it's out of a horror movie. I mean, there was blood everywhere. It was completely broken into pieces. My foot was dangling off, and I didn't want to let go of it because I felt like if I let go, my leg was going to fall off. And I just started screaming, help, a few cuss words in between there, and like call 911. And people started coming over to me. And I think I realized at that moment that this must be pretty bad, because one lady fainted. Other people, they weren't running over to me. They were walking slowly with a horrified look on their face. And this one guy, I wish I knew who he was. To this day, I don't know who he was or is. He saved my life because my femoral artery was severed. And I didn't know you can bleed out within minutes when your femoral artery is severed. And so he made a tourniquet on my leg right away. Paramedics got there really quick. I was put in the ambulance. My husband made it to the scene. And to this day, he still answers his phone. He used to like screen calls, and he was like, all of a sudden his phone was blowing up. All these people were calling him, and he finally answered, and they said, your wife's in the street. He made it to the scene. We got to the hospital, and my husband's, he's retired now, but he's a lieutenant commander with a highway patrol. And so news in the brotherhood and sisterhood of the police force travels fast. And so the whole ER was just filled with cops. Mm-hmm. And I heard this like wailing, like this, like I had never heard a sound like this. And I realized it was my husband. And he was crying hysterically, and he's a big, tough guy. He's this strong guy. I'd never seen him cry. And at that moment, I thought, oh my gosh, maybe I'm not going to live through this. And so I yelled across the ER. I was like, honey, get over here. I need you to be strong for me right now. And he came over and grabbed my hand, and I really needed to know that he was going to pull it together, because I might be dying here on the table. And that's the last thing I remember before they put me in induced coma, because I was basically, all my organs were shutting down. I'd lost so much blood. They couldn't control my pain. And when I woke up is when I learned the doctors, the first thing that they said was, well, you got a 1% chance of saving your leg. It's basically a war wound. We're going to have to go ahead and amputate it. And I was devastated, because that was my livelihood. Running was my therapy. I was a professional dancer before I was a fitness trainer. I was doing all these fitness videos. And so I was like, whoa, wait a minute. We're not going to amputate it. You said I have a 1% chance. So that means there's still a chance. We got to find a doctor who's willing to take that chance with me. And let me tell you, David, that took an act of God to get me transferred to a doctor. But we found a doctor, got transferred, and it took 34 surgeries, months in the hospital, and thousands of prayers, a lot of grit. And they saved my leg piece by piece. They put it back together.
Unbelievable story. It's not just the tragedy of what happened on that day, but it's the recovery, right? The rehabilitation, 34 surgeries. I can't even imagine.
Well, it's crazy. So when I first came out of a coma, when you are in a coma on life support, you have these tubes. They put Vaseline on your eyes, and then you have this tube that goes in your mouth, and you can't talk. And so I wake up out of a coma, and my arms are flailing around, and I'm trying to rip the tube out of my mouth. And they're like, no, don't do that, honey. The nurse was like, honey, don't do that. And they're like, I think she's trying to talk. I think she's trying to tell us something. And so get her a pen and a pad. And they brought over a pen and a piece of paper. And I kind of scribbled out. The first thing I wrote was, get off my tubes. Because my husband was leaning over me, had tears in his eyes, and he was cutting off the air, and I couldn't breathe. And the second thing I wrote was, please don't tell Savannah. That's my oldest daughter. I had no idea how long I'd been in a coma. I had no idea. She was on an 8th grade school trip, and I didn't want her to worry. So, it was the process of all those surgeries was really one day at a time. And I mean, look, had I known I was going to have 34 surgeries, and had I known that I would live in constant chronic pain for the rest of my life, maybe I would say, let's go ahead and cut it off. But I wanted to try. But in fact, about a year after my accident, about 3.5 months afterwards, I was diagnosed as a result of the trauma with a disease called complex regional pain syndrome, which it's dubbed the suicide disease because there's no known cure. It's caused by trauma or surgery. It's mostly common in women. And since there's no known cure and ranked highest on the pain scale, people kill themselves because they can't take the pain, or they slowly kill themselves with drugs and alcohol or anything else they can numb themselves out with. And so about a year after the accident, I had this brilliant idea. I went to the doctor and I was like, I've got the solution. Look, doc, I know y'all have worked hard to save this leg, but it's just not serving me. It gives me pain all the time. We need to go ahead and cut it off. And he was like, we can't do that. He said, you've got CRPS. And if we do that, it could make the disease spread, or it could make it worse. So that's not an option for you. And that is when I think my real recovery journey began, because growing up, in Texas, an athlete, and a dancer, I knew about grit and hard work. And I had started a business from the ground up. And I knew that if you just put the hard work in, the blessings will come, things will get better. You just got to keep up. Well, here I was told it's never going to get better. No matter how hard you work, you're going to need to get back in your wheelchair and put your leg up forever. You're going to be permanently disabled. So you probably won't be able to wear shoes. And if you do wear shoes, they're going to be orthotics. And I was like, I pretty much stopped listening to that doctor who diagnosed me when he said, you will be permanently disabled and you'll never be able to work. And that's when I really kind of had to dig deep and hit rock bottom. And it was a moment when I was like, oh my gosh, I have a choice here. I can keep going down this road of despair, or like I hung on to that 1% of hope. I can choose to get out of this. And I think once we realize we have a choice, we take our power back. Yeah,
I want to ask you about that specifically. I appreciate you breaking that down for us. Like you didn't deal with the recovery well, from what I understand, right? Like in the initial years that followed, right? Like you didn't deal with it well. Do you mind?
I sucked.
Well,
I sucked. I'm the worst patient.
Yeah, from a physical perspective, obviously it's not easy, right? But from the mental standpoint, you weren't dealing with it well, correct? Like what happened?
God, I was in denial. I was in such denial. When I was diagnosed with this disease, I was like, screw that. I don't have it. I'm not going to believe you. And I'm going to go find me a doctor that's going to tell me otherwise. And so I went to the second doctor. Yeah. And he goes, yeah, I was, dressed in my jeans and trying to look my best and healthiest. And I had boots on and like covering up all my scars and everything. And I walked into the doctor's office with a smile on my face. And if you've ever been to any kind of a pain doctor or a doctor that deals with any kind of neurological pain disorders or anything like that, let me tell you, the waiting room is not often the most uplifting place. People are in pain, most of the time miserable. They are giving up on life a lot of times, or they're so drugged up and they're drooling out of the side of their mouth. I can say that because I've been all of those things. So no judgment here. I've been there. But when I walked into the office, he looked at me, and just by looking at me, he was like, yeah, no, I don't think you've got CRPS, but let's just do an exam. So I'm like, okay. So unzip my boots. He looks at my leg. He starts examining me, and he's like, oh no, you definitely have it. We need to start radical treatment. And I was still like in disbelief. Like, I do not believe you. I'm not gonna. And it's kind of like if somebody is diagnosed with, they say you have diabetes and you're like, no, I don't. And you don't go take your insulin. So I went to another doctor, and the third doctor that diagnosed me, I burst into tears. And I was like, this sucks. This is my life. Like I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life, but I've got big plans. I've got things to do. And so I still was in denial a little bit. I did not want to take medication. On the outside, I was trying to pretend like everything was okay. And on the inside, I was dying inside, but I didn't want people to know that something was wrong with me or that I had a disease or that I was in pain. And I was trying everything to get out of pain. I mean, we had $2.9 million worth of medical expenses from all the surgeries. Now we were borrowed $20,000 from a friend of ours who we've paid back with interest to get ketamine infusions. I was trying anything and everything to get out of pain. And I was a good candidate for any snake oil salesman or charlatan that was saying, I can get you out of pain. I was like, okay, I didn't care how much it cost. I was going to try it. And I was on 73 homeopathic pills, along with 11 different prescription medications. And when nothing was working, I remember having a glass of wine one night and going, oh, well, this kind of numbs out the pain. And this kind of stuffs down my feelings of being unworthy. And, I didn't love myself. I was embarrassed and felt shame by the way I looked, and kind of helps numb all that out. Well, I wonder why the doctor didn't just tell me to have a glass of wine. And I remember thinking, the next time I had a glass of wine, this isn't probably the healthiest thing to do, but if this is what I have to do to get through the day, then I guess this is just what I'll have to do. And I come from a family of addiction, but I was always the go-getter, the fitness girl, the one who was going to do something with her life. And so I was never a drinker or a partier. I was already, I was always working. And I mean, I would say, when I was younger, and all my friends that were in college partying, going to bars, they were busy partying and I was busy collecting their tips. And so now I started drinking, and let me tell you, that worked until it didn't. And my life came crumbling down pretty fast, and to the point where I didn't want to live anymore. And I think by the grace of God and for my two daughters, and I share that, David, because I know you've got two daughters, and what a blessing it is to have kids, because that's what pulled me through. And I thought, because I was thinking, oh, they can find a different mom. My husband deserves a better wife. I'm just a burden, like all these things. And then I thought, no, I want to show my daughters what it means to be the victor of your life and not the victim. What it means to be resilient instead of living in despair. And so I think the first step to getting better was to admit and accept where I was. And that was hard sometimes on your journey to do that.
Man, that's profound. That's really, really profound. It's true. When you have a family and children, it's not about you anymore, right? It's about them. So what was that turning point? Like, can you pinpoint a specific day or a thought or something that made you say, I'm changing my situation. I'm going to change my life now?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I've actually never shared that moment, but I remember we were remodeling our house. And so we, moved out of our house, and it was when we had these gas leaks in Porter Ranch. So there were no houses available to rent. Everything was completely saturated. And so the only thing we could find left was Charlie Chaplin's old house. It was Charlie Chaplin's house, and everything was like, yeah, it was miniature. Like everything was small and everything was really old. They didn't want to like redo much. So it was like really old and creaky and weird and dark. And at this time, my drinking had really, I was drinking every day at this point. And I had stopped working. So that really, because I didn't feel I had a purpose, I kind of lost my drive. And so I was drinking more to try to just cope with the pain. And I think a lot of us, when we have any kind of pain or trauma, if you're, for me, it was drinking to kind of numb out. But so many of us, overwork or overeat or speed date or whatever it is that we overdo, or worry about others more instead of taking a look at ourselves. And I remember it being in that house, and I had a bottle of wine and I poured it down the drain. And I thought, there's got to be more than this. This is not what I am meant for. I am not here to just waste my life away. And I remember pouring that down the drain, and I went to my husband and I said, I think I have a problem. And, like I said, my husband is a cop. He's a lieutenant commander, and he was used to seeing people on the street that would drink too much. He arrested people like me. Luckily I wasn't one of those people that was like hopping around in the bars. I was drinking like in solitude, and I was trying to hide it from everybody. So he didn't even really know how much I was drinking. I was hiding it from everyone, including him. And he was like, anybody would drink if they had to live with the pain that you're living with. Anybody would do what you're doing. He goes, you don't have a problem. And I think, I'm not trying to speak for him, but I think he didn't want to see me as having a problem with it. But I knew deep down, like I knew in my heart and soul that I needed help. And I think people can tell you things, your loved ones can tell you things, but you have to listen to your true self and what you know, and what your heart and your soul and your inner wisdom tells you, because you really do know. And sometimes I think that if we sit still enough and kind of listen, you will get the answers. And I thought, I need help. And I called someone that I knew. It was so humiliating to call a former client of mine and tell her, I got a problem. Can you take me to like a 12-step meeting or something? And she said, oh yeah, I'll help you. And then I never heard from her. And I share that because when you reach out to somebody, it takes a lot of courage. It took every ounce of courage and energy, because I was so depressed, to reach out for help. And sometimes the person that we reach out they can't help us. Maybe they're too busy. Maybe they forget. Who knows? But don't let that stop you. For me, I was like, after a week, I was like, I'm going to die. If I don't get help, I'm going to die. And I want to live. So I Googled 12-step meetings. I literally Googled it, and I found a place that was open when my daughter would be in school and my husband was at work. And I went from sneaking drinking to now I was sneaking going to meetings and going to get recovery. So it was like so crazy, and it was so scary to do that. So, to anyone listening, if you're struggling or you're in a place where you feel, because I think pain has a way of making us feel isolated. Like they're like, no one would ever understand what I'm going through, or, but I can guarantee you there are people that are struggling with the same exact thing that you're going through, whether it's not necessarily drinking, whether it's like a relationship troubles or your business is failing or whatever your struggle is right now. And I promise, if you reach out and share with somebody that you trust, or you find a safe place to share, and you realize that, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one that's dealing with this, it gives you hope, and you start to build community. And when you see somebody that has overcome something, you're like, yeah, if they did it, I can do it too. And so it took a long time for me to go through healing. I still struggle daily. I don't have it all together. I'm still learning. I think that recovery and transformation and resilience is something, it's not necessarily a destination, but it's like a lifelong progress and process that we continue to learn and grow and evolve. And so if anybody's struggling, I would really encourage you just to reach out. You don't have to do it alone, because I know it feels very alone sometimes, and I don't want people to ever feel alone like I did.
It's super powerful, in talking about this, it would have been easy to justify it, right? Justify it. Or, there's a sense of denial too, with you and your spouse. Nah, it's not, that's not me. Right. So the next question would be, what specific steps did you take, maybe even daily, to turn your life around and turn that tragedy into triumph?
Well, you know what? I was so willing to do whatever I could to get better, feel better, and transform my life mentally, physically, and spiritually. And, I didn't even share that I'm sober until probably, I don't know, maybe I was probably sober for about 2 years before I even told people that I was sober. But it's something I work on every single day to get better. And I think that I have non-negotiables for me. So non-negotiables for me are like, in the morning, I start my day every day. It doesn't matter if I'm on vacation or I have the busiest day that starts at, 5 a.m. or whatever. It's a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever. I have my morning ritual. So I have that time in the morning so I can get really grounded with gratitude before my feet hit the floor. I say a prayer, and I say, because there's a lot of mornings, David, where I'm just like, just the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, I could sleep for 30 more minutes, but my husband's snoring. And I was like, good Lord, another day and he's snoring. And I'm like, wait a minute. No, how about, thank you, Lord. Thank you for this day. Thank you that he's breathing. Because I think a lot of times we can get caught up in, oh, good Lord, another day, instead of, thank you, Lord. And so I start, and some people get weirded out with a God or Lord or whatever. I know I grew up very religious, and I'm more spiritual than religious. And one of my friends shares Gus. So God, universe, spirit. So she always says, let Gus drive your bus. And so I love that. I'm like, yep, I got to let Gus drive the bus. Let him take charge. I need help here. But I pray, I get up, I read out of either a spiritual book or self-development book. I write, I journal, I think about what my intentions are, what my lists are. I'm big on lists and writing out things because it's so easy to get distracted nowadays when you don't know what your priorities or your intentions are, especially with that dang Clubhouse app now pinging you every 5 seconds. And I'm like, I want to go in that room. I want to go, but I don't check my phone. And I even have a bedtime app thing on my phone that drives my husband crazy because it won't allow calls to come in. It like shuts my phone down between, 8:45 and 6:00 in the morning. And so I do that because I want to be really intentional about my day. So I still go to recovery meetings. It's a big part of, my sobriety comes first. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have my health. I wouldn't be here sitting here talking with you, have the honor to do that. And so I really focus on what I can do to keep my sobriety, what I can do to strengthen my connection with my higher power, which is prayer, and what I can do to keep me stronger physically, which is move my body. Because yes, moving your body gets you stronger, all the things that we know. But for me, moving my body is my medicine. It really moves my mindset, and it releases endorphins that combat pain. So a lot of people in pain think, oh, I don't want to move because it's going to make me hurt worse. But actually, when you move your body, it not just moves your mindset, it combats pain. And so that's a big part of my day and things that I do. And I'm always reaching out to other people because for so long I tried to do everything on my own and it didn't work. And so I think when we have community, it's powerful when we can come together and support one another. So I have an accountability partner. I text every morning. I have a God squad. We reach out to each other throughout the week. So whatever you can do. And then I have a group of entrepreneurs that we reach out and we talk to each other about our struggles with podcasting or launching our mastermind or our courses or whatever it may be. So I think it's really powerful to have community. And that's a great thing about a mastermind too, is it gives you that connection with other people that are like-minded going through similar things.
I've heard you say that pain has been one of your biggest teachers. Can you explain that?
Well, yeah, for so long, growing up, I was taught to suck it up and cowgirl up and hide your crazy and be a lady. Don't admit that something's wrong. You don't want to be a burden. And then as a dancer, it didn't matter if your feet were bleeding. I danced on point, ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop. And so I lived at the dance studio. And I remember when I first got on point and we were going across the floor doing pirouettes and I was slowed down and my teacher was like, "Come on, Amberly." And I was like, "But Miss Jackie, my toes are bleeding." And she goes, "I don't care. Suck it up. The show must go on." And so it didn't matter. In track, when I would run, I remember, being in Texas and it'd be 100 degrees with 100% humidity. And you would run so hard that you had to throw up. And the coach would just be like, "Off the track to throw up and keep running." So I learned grit. I learned to suck it up. And I really learned something that I've had to unlearn, which was to ignore pain, ignore what my body was telling me. And it wasn't until I had this accident and I was pushing, trying my best to get back to training clients. And I was training clients and, on crutches. I was training clients in a wheelchair. And believe it or not, I didn't think anybody would want to train with me, but my business boomed because they're like, "Dude, if that girl can get in shape in a wheelchair, then I am going to train with her. I have no excuses." And so, but I was pushing, and I kept ending up in the ER. And one night, one day I had this red kind of line a little bit going up my foot. My foot always hurts. The complex regional pain syndrome is in my foot and it always hurt. But that day I was on my way to go give a motivational speech in front of this new group of entrepreneurs. And I was like, I had adrenaline going. And so that kind of numbed out the pain a little bit. And I hurt, but I was like, I got to push through this. I got to do it. That night we get home, my foot felt like it was going to explode. I put my leg up on the kitchen table and the red line is starting to go up my leg. And I looked and I knew that meant infection. And so I finished doing homework with my daughter, put the dishes away. And I said, "Honey, I got to go down to the ER and just have them take a look at this, maybe give me some antibiotics. I'll be back." So I went to the hospital and they were like, we have to admit you right away. This is serious. You've got a severe infection. And if we don't get to this, you could lose your leg because the metal could be infected. And I'm like, "Oh, what a pain. Okay, whatever." I still didn't get it. And it wasn't until literally maybe 3 months later, I felt horrible. I felt like I had the worst flu ever. And I was going to go to the doctor and my husband comes upstairs and he yells up, "I thought you were going to the doctor." And I screamed down. I said, "Help me." I started shaking. My whole body started going into convulsions. And he comes over and he holds me down, trying to get me to stop shaking. And he calls our friend who's a doctor and says, "Oh my God, Amberly feels sick. Now she's shaking." He said, "You need to get her to the ER right away." So by this time, my husband has been to the hospital so many times with me. He goes up to the hospital, drops me off at the ER. I walk in, the doctor checked me out and I told him, I said, "Yeah, I don't feel well." I said, "I think I might have like a kidney infection or something." And he comes back, they, do a bunch of tests. They come back and he said, "You don't look like you should be this sick, but you're septic. You're dying. We got to put you in ICU." And it was at that point, it took me almost dying. Here I survived this accident. I survived all these surgeries, got out of the hospital without one infection for my leg, only to be pushing myself so hard and not listening to the pain that two of the doctors came in on that time I was in the hospital. And they said, "If you would have waited one more day, you would have been dead." So when I got out of ICU and I got out of the hospital, one day we were dropping my daughter off and my husband goes, "You're really quiet." And I said, "I'm scared." He goes, "Oh, you can't be scared. You can't be scared. You're my rock. I need you to be strong. You're my rock. You can't." And I was like, "Okay, I'm not scared, But it was a moment where I was like, wow, we have this one gift, this life that we have. And it's really amazing how our body works. And pain is an indicator. It's telling us that something's wrong, that we don't need to ignore it or try to suck it up or numb it out or stuff it down. If we don't deal with the pain, pain demands to be heard. And it will show up in every aspect of your life. It'll show up in the way that you parent. It'll show up in your health. It'll show up in your relationships. It'll show up how you do your business. So if we don't feel the pain and listen to it and take some action steps to get better, it will take us down. I think that there's power in the pause, and we have to pause and check in with ourselves before our health forces us to pause.
Again, deep. Listen to yourself, listen to your body, intuition, all that stuff plays into that. So I think that's important. I want to ask you about the topic of self-image. So you were a fitness coach for many years. You were successful at that. You were doing great things. So self-image and how you presented yourself would have been important naturally, right? So how did you deal with self-image after? And what can you say to someone who's struggling with self-image, with or without an accident?
Oh, it's tough now, isn't it? With like social media and everything looks so glamorous, and it's human nature to tend to compare. And let me tell you, in the hospital, I cried, and I remember the moment it hit me. Like once I realized, okay, I'm alive. And I remember sitting in the hospital and I couldn't sleep because every 3 hours they would come and they would rip these bandages off my legs to have to change the bandages. And so I would count down the minutes until they would come to do that. And I was sitting there watching some infomercial about how to get a Brazilian butt. And I was like, oh, I'm never going to have a Brazilian butt, and I'm never going to wear a bikini, and I'm all deformed now. And oh my God, I have all these scars. And I was like spiraling into a pity party. And I know that seems so shallow, but yeah, my whole life, from being a professional dancer and being in Elle magazine for fitness and shape and infomercial and with Body by Jake and sponsored by Nike, my business card, I was basically a walking billboard for my business. I was the picture of health. I was in the best shape of my life. And now I was lying in a bed. I had lost about 20 pounds of muscle. I had bed sores all over me, and my leg was scarred and deformed from the hip down. And when I got out of the hospital is when it really started to kick in. And I really hated my leg, hated myself. I felt like I had no self-worth because my worth before was all on how much money I made, what I could contribute to the family as far as like how much, what I did. I was a kind of an overachiever, and I had nothing. And would my husband love me anymore? And I remember when I was finally, after months of being bedridden and being able to put something over my leg, it was a hot California day, and I was putting some baggy pants and boots that would hide my scar. And my girlfriend was like, it's like 100 degrees outside and you're wearing those big, tall boots. And I remember saying, well, I am always going to wear big, tall boots because I don't want anybody to ever see all these scars. And I used to get in the swimming pool and cry because my husband kind of freaked out when he would see me cry. So I would get in the swimming pool and cry over my situation and the way I looked, because I thought, well, you can't see the tears because of the water in the pool. And so I was a mess. And it wasn't until, again, I radically accepted the way that I looked, because I thought, sometimes our confidence gets knocked out of us. Our resilience gets knocked out of us, and it's up to us to rebuild it. And sometimes it helps if we have somebody around us that can help us do that. And for me, thank God I had a doctor that really shifted that for me and really started to allow me to accept and love my leg a little bit more. And all we need is a little bit, and that can grow into a lot. And it was a day I went in to go see him, and he took my leg and he sat down in front of me. And this is the doctor that saved my leg and my life. And he looked and he put my leg in his lap. And I remember thinking, I can't believe he's putting my gross leg in his lap. And he looked at it like it was a piece of art, like it was his masterpiece. It was like, I had a 1% chance of saving it, and he saved it. And tears just came out, and something shifted in me. And I thought, wow, if he can look at it that way, maybe I can learn to do the same thing. And so every day after that, instead of looking at my leg as disgusting and worthless and just focusing on the pain that it gave me, I started really getting grateful for it. I got grateful for the scars and looked at them as the all that I had survived, and what my leg could do for me instead of what it couldn't. It was healing every day. It was able to carry me, and I was able to walk. And I also wanted my daughters to know that it's not about perfect. It's about progress, and it's about showing up every damn day and doing the best that you can do, and loving yourself through those hard times. And I wanted them to know that, to love every, whether you want to call it flaw because or imperfection, that's what makes you uniquely you. And so I've also learned to laugh at myself a lot, and just the other day, and I learned so much from my kids. We were getting ready to take a bath, and my daughter, this is a while ago, she goes, was sitting there, we're getting in the tub, and I said, "Oh, Ruby," I said, "you don't even remember when my leg was better, do you?" Because I was looking down at all my scars, and she goes, "Well, Mama, your leg's better now." And I'm like, you're right. It's all perspective, and we have the ability to shift our perspective with a simple just change in the way we word things or look at things. And it's not necessarily our circumstances, but how we look at them. And so if we can learn to look at ourselves with love and appreciation and gratitude, it's alchemy. It really is.
Yeah, that's well, there's a lot to learn from your words there. It's not about perfect, it's about progress. That's really good. Okay, so the book, True Grit and Grace, Turning Tragedy into Triumph. What was the catalyst behind writing the book? Like, why did you write it, and what is it about?
I wrote the book to give others hope, to give them the inspiration to overcome any challenge they might be having, whether it is from, the shame that comes along from sexual abuse, because I was abused by my stepfather as a little girl, whether it's trauma. I share my experience, strength, and hope around that, whether it's, sobriety, whether it's having to start over and reinvent yourself at any age and letting go of those limiting beliefs. And so I really wanted to write a book to empower anybody to get really clear on their vision and to go after their goals. And I kind of thought to myself, well, if I can help one person get through a hard time, then it will have served its purpose. Then I can turn my pain to purpose. And let me tell you, my husband was like, yeah, you want to write a book, whatever. You don't even own a computer. I heard from so many naysayers that were like, yeah, good luck with that. And then when I got a publisher, they're like, oh, wow, you're really going to do that. Then when I got a call from NBC and Megyn Kelly wanted to interview me, I think that's when people were like, oh, dang, she's really doing this book. I'm like, yeah. So I share that about getting the call from NBC, and I share the experience of not owning a computer because I want, there's like 80% of people that want to write a book. Okay. And if you're listening to this right now and you want to write a book, this is your sign to write the book. Just start today, start now. Even if it's a paragraph a day. It took me 2 years to write my book. Then I went out and bought a computer, took a class at Apple to learn how to use it. And then Google was my best friend, and I Googled how to do everything. I had to learn how to market it because the publisher was like, we don't market. So if you want to get that book out there, it's up to you. So I'm sharing that because I told myself, who am I to write a book? Who's going to want to listen to me? But my why and my purpose behind it far outweighed my fear. And I think when you can focus on and your why, you can get through almost anyhow.
Anything is possible, right? So that brings up an interesting topic, which is like, your personal brand and your marketing now. Like you've been able to market yourself really effectively. I mean, you're considered an influencer now. Like, how did you start marketing yourself? Right? Yeah. But how did you, basically you reinvent yourself and you're marketing and branding yourself from scratch again. Right? How did you
from scratch. When I had my company for fitness training, it was I started that way before there was any kind of Instagram or Facebook or anything. So I had a website for that, but all of my business was word of mouth. And so I really started from scratch. And when I started my Instagram, I had a couple of hundred followers, and it was mostly pictures of my kids and my dog or whatever. I mean, it was like, I basically started Instagram when I first got an account so I could stalk my oldest daughter and see what she was up to. And I barely knew how to work it. And then when I found out they were like, you have to market this, I was like, oh, wow. Okay. I did not know how to market. I didn't know what I was doing, and still don't really. I mean, I've learned a lot along the way, and I say I don't know what I'm doing, but apparently some of it's working because I've been on some pretty big media outlets. And I think the reason why is because I really think the reason why, because I did this speaking event and we got on stage and we had to give a free giveaway for the audience. And so I gave away, gratitude's big in my life. I gave away a free downloadable gratitude journal. The guy after me gets on, he gives away $1 million home. I am not kidding you. So I walk up to him afterwards.
How do you compete with that?
I was like, dude, way to one up me. I was like, I didn't know who he was. I was just like giving him a hard time. I was like, wow, you gave away a home? That's awesome. I had to leave anyway. He looked me up and he called me and he said, hey, Amberly, I found you. I spoke at that event with you and I found you. And I just wanted to say, your branding and your social media is awesome. We would love to hire the company that you used to do that. And I was like, well, that would be me. And they're like, no, but who does your branding and everything? I'm like, that would be me. He goes, well, how did you build an engaged audience? And I said, I listen to my audience. I said, I listen to them. I hear them. I respond to them and I love them. They're like my family. And I spent hours a day when I first started, and sometimes hours. Now, I'll tell you right now, let me just look. I'm going to look right now and see my insights and be brutally honest with how much time this is just on Instagram, because people think like, how do you do it? And a lot of it is like, I spend a lot of time on it. because for me, my social media, I got my TEDx talk. I booked the 10th anniversary TEDx because the curator found me on Instagram. Mm-hmm. And so, at first, my husband, my family was like, we can't stand you on social media. You spend and I dedicate certain hours where they're asleep, or I know that it's not going to interfere with family time or other times. But I sold out of books at every single book signing across the country because of social media. So there's really a lot of power in social media about getting your brand out there. But I really think, so I'll tell you, this is embarrassing. I'm going to tell you this though. I average 2 hours and 46 minutes a day on Instagram alone. And now there are going to be people like Brendan Burchard and other people who are going to be like, you're wrong. That's terrible. You should only be averaging 30 minutes. But for me, I book out so many speaking events, so many clients, so many jobs through Instagram. So that's kind of where I hang out.
See, that doesn't seem out of the realm of it doesn't seem crazy to me, to be honest, for, the size of your following and what you're doing. I think if you're promoting a book or you're branding or you're doing what you're doing, I think you have to spend a couple hours a day on social media. I think you have to.
Yeah.
Ask Brad. I mean, Brad probably spends, he's always on Instagram constantly, he's doing the lives and everything else, but, success leaves clues, right? You got to put the time in and the work, and the results will show up. I feel like it's kind of difficult to say, hey, listen, I'm going to grow my brand, but I'm only going to commit to 29 minutes a day and that's it. I think that's really tough to do. Which actually you brought it up, which I think is interesting, is the TEDx, right? How did you book the TEDx and what was that experience like?
Well, I think it's so important. And here's another thing. A lot of times people think on social media, I've coached people now. Who would have ever thought that I'd be coaching people on how to do their social media and stuff? But that's one of the things that people come to me to ask them, how do I start to build a following? How do I post? What do I post? Those things. And I've actually had people they would just post and not engage. And the thing is, it's social media because it's social. It's meant to build community and connection, especially at times like this. And so I've had to tell people it's not just about putting something up there, but I know how important it was for me when I just needed to be seen and heard. I was so struggling so much. And if somebody that I looked up to just acknowledged hey, hang in there, or it carried me a long way. So I know what that feels like. So I like to really see and hear people. And I would have to tell them, it's not just about posting and then that's it. Go engage with your audience. And so this TEDx curator had been following me for a year. I had no idea they were a curator. They were watching not just what I was posting, they were watching the way I responded to people and what I was doing on social media. So they were reading my responses and everything. And when they reached out to me through a DM, I thought it was a joke at first. And I was like, okay, well, here's my email. Looking forward to hearing from you, thinking I'll never hear from a TEDx curator. Well, it was TEDx is one of the most prestigious TEDx stages. That TEDx stage was the most, and I've spoken on some big stages with Mel Robbins and Lewis Howes and Jay Shetty. This stage was beautiful and intimidating as hell, let me tell you. And it was 2 balconies and bucket seats that went up. And when I finally, got the call, I talked to her on the phone and she's like, yeah, we want you to come share your message. I was scared to death. And I went and curled up in a ball on the couch with my eyes looking like I was staring like a deer into headlights. And I was surprised because I thought I'd be so happy, jumping up for joy. And I was scared to death because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have 14 minutes to share the most important message of my life. And that's when it gets really clear and you have to go, okay, what is the most important message? What is something that if I could share, that I would share that people would learn? And it was a process of really getting over imposter syndrome because, when the media went live and I was the only speaker that didn't have a PhD, the curator told me something that really changed things for me. And I share this so that maybe it'll shift it for somebody who's listening right now, is when you have that imposter syndrome, first of all, I always think, well, that means you're about to do something really big and important. And then when I was having feelings like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, I'm the only one that doesn't have a PhD, she said, Amberly, we chose you for this TED Talk because you have a PhD in heart, and that's why we want you on our stage. And I think that's something we can all have a PhD in, is our heart. And so I always say, get out of your head and stay in your heart. Just whatever you're going through, or whatever you want to share, or whatever message you have, let it come from your heart.
That's fantastic. That's so much gold, so many gems to take away. I'm going to be listening to this a few times because there's so much in there. Really appreciate that. What projects are you working on now? Like, what's next for Amberly Lago?
Well, there is so much going on right now that's exciting. I have 3 events coming up. I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but 3 events that are coming up that I'm excited about, with Forbes Riley and David Meltzer and Kevin Harrington will be speaking at an event. And you can go to amberlylago.com on my events page and get, it's free tickets for that. But I think the thing that I'm most excited about that's coming up is my mastermind called Your Unstoppable Life Mastermind. I was a part of a mastermind, and I know we talked about this a little bit about the power of community, but I was a part of a mastermind and it was really moved the needle on my business. And so I think it's really important, if you're trying to do big things in your business or your life or your health, is to surround yourself with people who have paved the way before you, or like-minded people. So I got certified by the Mastermind Association to be a mastermind consultant. And we are kicking off the Your Unstoppable Life Mastermind. And it's just such a great way to build community, get clarity on your goals, and then have people's counsel, not opinion. Because people, if you want to write a book and you're going to your family or your friends and they've never written a book, you might get some negative feedback, or, they just don't know how. But if you, like for me, I wanted to write a book, I went to somebody who had written 75 books, best-selling books. He's like, oh yeah, you want to write a book? All you need to do is this, this, and this. And so when you can surround yourself with good counsel, it makes a big difference in your business and in your life.
Yeah, that's a great point. You have to do it if you want to be. You got to be with like-minded people and those that push you. And a classic saying: if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. We all know that.
Yeah, and it helps to have the accountability. To like, okay, what are you showing up with next week? And you're like, oh, I don't want to show up to the mastermind and not have it done. So it's good to have that accountability.
I know I'm in a pretty highly curated mastermind group too. And the pressure's on, that we break off into small committees, and then, you got to bring it. You can't just show up and not be prepared, so
it's amazing though, isn't it? Yeah, I love it. I'll show you. I even have this, like we have paddles. So it's like, here's when you're going down the crazy train and you're getting off cue. We're like, crazy train, get back on track.
Oh, wow.
Here's when your time is up and stop.
Oh my God. I love that.
So I've got paddles.
A few people need those. Especially the crazy train.
People can get, the crazy train going down. Time to wind it up. Let's stay on track. But I love the mastermind because, you get 2 minutes to declare who you are, what your goal is, and what your challenge is. Then everybody in the group, you got about 2 minutes to ask clarifying questions. And then everybody gives you counsel, and based on their experience or what they've done. And not just that, but the connections that you make through masterminds, whether it's getting on different podcasts, or maybe somebody knows a publisher or a publicist, or That's what's been really helpful. And I think everybody in the mastermind that I was in before I went to get to be a consultant for a mastermind, I think every one of those people has been on my podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool. You're right. The networking, the connections, it's invaluable. That's the stuff you can't put a price on, What do you do for fun now?
You know what? I love hanging out with my family at the barn. That is my daily reprieve to have fun, is to go to the barn. My daughter rides her horse and seeing the joy on her face. I would like to get a horse of my own. She's got a horse and I usually will walk the trails and I walk behind her and she rides. And I'm always like, can I ride your horse? And she's like, no, you can't ride my horse. But I just enjoy being out in nature. I think so often now we're behind computer screens or any kind of screens. And like we said earlier, I'm on social media a lot. And so I think getting out in nature is where I have my fun. It's where I find time to play. It's where I recharge. And it's also where I really connect to my higher power. So I like being out in nature.
Great thoughts. Hopefully everybody's paying attention to that. Get outside, everyone. Get outside.
Get out. Get some sunshine. Get some vitamin D. Move. Because it's easy to sit.
Well, yeah. And depending on what state, province, or city you're in, they can find you in the house. So, you got to make the effort, so it's.
Well, my family in Texas is in a snowstorm right now. It's 2 degrees there. So yeah, maybe stay inside, but do some jumping jacks or something.
Perfect. Here's one that'll make you think. If you could have dinner with any 3 people in history, past or present, who would they be and why?
First would probably be Elon Musk, because my 12-year-old has a huge crush on him. I mean, she loves him. I mean, not in a weird way. She really admires him. In fact, I had Mae Musk on my podcast. I interviewed her on my podcast, and I was really making about her and her book. But I did say, hey, my 12-year-old has a Talk Tesla account, like a fan account for your son.
Yeah.
And if I don't ask you one question about him, she's going to kill me. So I think I would probably, you know what? The things he says, I love that he's so upfront and says it like it is. Like, he was on Clubhouse and someone asked, what would you tell an entrepreneur to keep them motivated? And he was like, don't be an entrepreneur if you're not motivated. That's what he would tell them. Yeah. So I would have dinner with him and just want to sit and listen to what he said. I think probably Oprah. I would just want to sit and listen to her. And then Brad Pitt, because he's so hot.
Brad Pitt.
Yes, I love him.
Yeah. Final question, Amberly. You're opening a bottle of champagne 1 year from now, celebrating something you've accomplished. What would that be?
I would be opening a bottle of sparkling apple cider because I'm sober, and I would be celebrating the.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Sorry. I just had to think about that. And I think it's powerful what we say. Yeah. So I wanted to make sure I said that because I want to keep sober. I'm just saying. And I would be celebrating that I was holding my first in-person event and you were there to hang out with me. And we were about to go over and say hi to Brad Pitt and interview him on our podcast.
That's an incredible answer. Yeah, I'll insert the applause there. That's a fantastic answer. That's great. You know what's so funny is I ask like entrepreneurs this question, like, they're very successful, and we talk about goal setting, but when you put somebody on the spot, 1 year from now, what am I celebrating? And it's very hard. Like they have to think about it long and hard. They're like, I don't know, like, I don't know what I'm celebrating.
I would say my next book, but I know how long. I know that there's no way, even if I started on my next book and finished it today, there's no way in a year from now it would be published, because the publishing process takes a year up to 2 years if you do hybrid or traditional publishing. So that's why I didn't say book, but a book is also in mind. But yeah, I think
That's awesome.
I would love an in-person event, because I just love people so much. I love meeting people, especially when I have, and I hope we get to do this in the near future, but when I get to go speak at conferences and I get to meet people that I've connected with online through social media, it is like we cry because I love getting to connect with people. And that has been the biggest gift of my whole entire journey, is just the connection with some amazing people. So,
yeah. And depending on your personality type, I mean, you get recharged by being with people, like that's what gives you the energy, and being, through this whole pandemic, it's been really rough on, people that depend on being social for energy. It's been really, really tough. So, man, I got to tell you, I really, really enjoyed this discussion. Good to get to know you better, obviously. And the story you have, it really, it inspires people that, they can overcome challenges, overcome whatever obstacles they might have with determination, gratitude, and belief in oneself. That's for sure. So I really appreciate you jumping on with us. Where do you want the people to find you? Follow you on Instagram?
Yeah. Follow me on Instagram, and if you want to get a free playbook, I have a Goals, Grit, and Grace playbook, and I talk about the PACER method, which is a 5-step process to tap into your superpower resilience. If you text the word grit, so just GRIT, to 818-214-7378, you can get your playbook, or you can just text me and say hi and stay connected. But yeah, I'm mostly on Instagram and have some crazy behind the scenes stuff of all the crazy stuff we do with the horses. We just had a pony in a swimming pool, our friend's swimming pool, the other day. So yeah, reach out and let me know you heard it here so I can connect with you.
Well, everybody go follow Amberly on Instagram. And then where do you want everyone to go to get the book, to buy the book?
Oh, you can get the book. Probably the easiest way is Amazon. It's True Grit and Grace. It is on Audible. That's a whole story. That was harder than it seemed, but it's on Audible. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at my website at amberlylago.com. And my Instagram is Amberly Lago Motivation. And my podcast is True Grit and Grace, and it's stories about resilience. So yeah.